right. Welcome to Sonoman Sideshow. Recorded at Grim Reaper Studios, located somewhere at the base of the beautiful Blue Mountains in Eastern Oregon. I'm your host, Les Snowman Kinnear. We got a great show for you tonight. The one and only Big Steve Humphrey is here. Lead man for Big Steve and the Trainwreck. I'm sure you've all heard of them. Nice sunny day today. Cold though. It was cold, but at least the sun was out. I can handle it when the sun's out. I don't get quite as bummed out. Let's get into the news. Well, the odd news, that is. Let's start out with Alvis Parrish, 54, of Jacksonville, Florida, got tired of hearing her boyfriend, William Carter, talk on December 7th, so she gave him just enough poison. I like that. Just enough poison in his lemonade to shut him up. Then she called police so he wouldn't die. Let's see, that was reported by clickorlando.com. When officers arrived, Parrish was on her front porch where she was handcuffed. Do whatever you want, she told them. If you don't take me, I will kill him. A deputy who spoke to Carter said he was difficult to interview because he was so tired. Carter said the lemonade tasted funny, then collapsed on the floor. Parrish is facing a charge of poisoning food or water with intent to kill or injure a person. I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty sure my wife Wendy's poisoned me a few times. I probably had it coming. So, all right, here's another one out of Oldfield. This is Britt Paul Oldfield, a.k.a. Mr. Methane, enjoys the unusual ability to pass gas on demand. Oddity Central reported on October 1st, he discovered his talent while doing yoga with his sister as a teenager. And in an entrepreneurial spirit, he found a way to make money with his gift. Oldfield travels around the world, entertaining audiences with parodies of songs. He manipulates his buttocks to change the tone and pitch of his farts and do rapid-firing releases. Okay, I'm just going to stop right there. That is bizarre, although I probably could give him a run for his money. Been eating a lot of vegetables lately. Okay, let's go on to our next story and last one. Some news items just catapult themselves into the news of the weird. And on Delta Airlines flight in November between Syracuse, New York and Atlanta, the woman sitting in 13A allegedly tried to breastfeed her hairless cat, much to the cat and the passenger's distress. Flight attendants repeatedly asked the woman to return the yowling cat to its kennel. The New York Post reported, but she refused. Her shirt was up and she was trying to get the cat to latch, and the cat was screaming for its life, said Ainsley Elizabeth, a flight attendant who was on board during the incident. Finally, a message was sent through the aircraft communications addressing and reporting system, alerting the ground crew in Atlanta that they would need a red coat team member to apprehend the woman at the gate. Red coats are especially trained to handle customer service issues. It's unclear what happened to the woman after she and the cat landed. Goes on. That is okay. I don't know. There's something not quite right there. Breastfeeding a cat. That sounds extremely painful. Could just be me. I don't know. All right. Well, we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we will discuss the life and times of our greatest guest ever, Big Steve Humphrey. So stick around. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the show. I'm really excited about this. The one, the only, world famous Big Steve Humphrey. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Hey, it's great to be here.
You don't sound necessarily that excited.
I've had funner times.
Oh, God. Listen, imagine 20 years of music and playing music with this guy and him just beating me down constantly. Just constantly. No.
I feel it's like my calling.
Yeah, all right. You kept me in check for sure. So, I want Big Steve on the show because he is one interesting guy. And it's also interesting the way we met. I was looking for somebody to teach me how to play the blues. And so I put an ad in the paper, and Steve was the first person to respond to it. Now, the ad wasn't
I wasn't the first one.
I think you were.
Oh, okay.
Well, maybe you were the only important one. The rest of them were like, there were some really weird ones that responded. I do recall that. But no, Steve was like the real deal and was willing to get together and teach me some stuff. And so, God, that grew into like 2 or 3 different bands, and we would go jam and get everybody together, and it was so much fun. I loved it. It was one of the best times of my life, and I got to learn a lot. And all I had to do was sit there and watch everybody, play, and it was good. And maybe hopefully in the spring we can start that up again, the jam sessions. I've reached out to all the musicians that we used to know, and I've got a lot of stony silence. So
everybody is older now, and things change.
Well, I can only play guitar for like 5 minutes, and then my fingers are too sore.
Well, I think what you're probably going to find is people go, "Gosh, I haven't picked up my guitar, bass, drums, whatever," or I sold my drum. I haven't done that in 2-3 years, or,
Right.
Yeah. Well, COVID kind of has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, that changed everything. Well, I was surprised you even wanted to come over because I just got done being sick. But no, I'm joking. Just kidding. Just kidding. Too soon?
Yes.
Well, anyways, Steve, you've done a lot of crazy things in your life, interesting things, and I know you're older.
Some of it was I was just, I was young and experimenting, and
well, I think it's interesting that you grew up in Southern California. And I was hoping maybe you could discuss that a little bit, like what that was like at that era. And, you grew up where surfing really was, that's when it started, when it was cool and people were surfing and the Beach Boys and all that kind of era. You lived it. What was it like?
It was really good. I lived, I think I used to ride my bike to the beach. So it was I think it's 5 miles or so, which I couldn't do 5 miles now if you paid me. But, we in Southern California, sun's always shining. If it was like, below 70 degrees, we'd be, oh man, it's so cold. I have to wear my coat, whatever. But, and then, Beach Boys had a lot to do with the surfing craze. Surfing, was going on, but Beach Boys kind of made it popular, and
right.
So a lot of that, 63, 64, even into 65, it was, in my neck of the woods, surfing was huge, and everybody had a surfboard, and it was just the thing to do, at least with the crowd that I ran around with.
How good a surfer were you?
I sucked.
Were you?
Oh, God, yeah.
Just being honest?
Yeah. I had a really cool board,
Yeah. What kind of rig did you have back then?
Back then, you bought the board by how big of a person you were, your weight, and all that. It has since changed, but so everybody had like a 9-foot board to, whatever. I think I had one of the longest ones, 9.6.
Did you go by Big Steve then?
Didn't go by it, but I was called that, or lard ass. I mean, I had a few other names, but nowadays, or not that much longer after that, like probably in the 70s, 80s, people really got into competitive surfing and stuff, and the boards were like 7.6, and which in my day, you get on a 7.6 board and it'd be 6 inches underwater, which even with the champion surfers nowadays, they're not floating on the board when they're paddling out. It's underwater.
Right.
But they turn, and we used to have one skag, which is the little fin under that helps you turn. Now they got like 3, I mean, it's things have changed a whole bunch.
Yeah, that's wild. Who were you listening to music-wise then? Would have been your favorite back then?
Well, Beach Boys for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they were my go-to, and I just loved everything about them. In like my sophomore year in high school, I think the Beatles came out, so a lot of Beatles, Rolling Stones. But I grew up. My mom listened to the rock and roll station when from the time I was a baby, I guess. But I remember when Elvis came out, and Bill Haley and the Comets and all that, Buddy Holly, and that was really the beginning of rock and roll.
Yeah.
She would listen to, I think it was KFWB in LA, and she'd have that on all day. And but in between, Buddy Holly and Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis and all this would be Frank Sinatra. This is, pop radio. So this is all, Perry Como had some big hits. I can't think of all the names that, you wouldn't probably know who the hell they were, but they were like guys from the big band era that, were the crooners that, and so rock and roll, kind of came in on the pop channels. I mean, it wasn't even probably called rock and roll then. And then eventually, now you got a million different kinds of rock and roll stations, to listen to.
Genres and subgenres.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, it's great. And I give 99% of the credit to the Beatles, because they opened up, you can have a sitar in a rock band, and stuff like that. I mean, they just opened up everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Was that when you first got into music down there, when you were living down there? Playing music, I should say.
Oh, playing, yeah. I'm thinking junior high.
Junior high.
Yeah. And in Southern California where I lived, in junior, there was a couple bands in my junior high. There was 3 or 4 in my high school, rock bands.
Yeah.
A lot of, we're in a kind of upper middle class area where we lived in, kids that, kind of well off, not rich kids, but everybody lived well, and so the kids, could buy guitars and amps and drums and all that. So there was, and some that went on to some prominence back in the 60s and 70s. None of them like really, really big time. Well, one guy went to, when I moved to Simi Valley, was drummer in the Grassroots. They had a whole bunch of like top 40 songs. And there's some other guys I can't think of who right now that, had success, and they weren't like in the Eagles or anything, but,
is there any way that you could remember the name of your first band?
Oh, jeez.
I didn't have a first band. We did the blues club. So
Right, yeah.
and then I guess the first band I had, we called it Dog Leg Left because
Right.
Ken and I both golfed. But
Yep.
you know,
My first band.
or
First
first name you can remember.
Well,
of a band.
the first name I can remember was the Inanimate Objects. That's a catchy.
Love it.
And I mean, that was, I think we named ourselves that for one gig we played because we're just, a lot of the bands I was in didn't have a name unless we had a gig, and then we'd throw together a name and do it,
Right. That's
But,
funny.
Yeah.
I remember Ken saying that too. That exact thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you weren't playing harmonica then, were you? Did you start clear back then?
No, it was always guitar.
Always guitar. And what guitar did you play? What was the first really nice axe you had?
It's always a Fender.
Yeah. Right on. Right on. Yeah, so then you've done a lot of other things in your life. You've moonlighted as a sports reporter, and you've done radio hosting and all kinds of other fun things. One of the things I want to touch on was that you used to be a river guide.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can talk about that. And I'm just curious, I mean, the main things, what sort of weird stuff went on? There had to have been times where you took people down and it was just bizarre people. Maybe you saw a squatch or some sort of thing. What do you got for us?
Well, I was still kind of young and experimenting sexually on.
Oh, yikes!
No.
Just turned into an explicit show.
No, what I mostly did, and I did river guiding, but I had a rafting company that we rented rafts. That was the bulk of the business. Renting that people, rode themselves down the river and stuff. And we were in the, I guess you'd call it the Middle Rogue River in Grants Pass. It's the most popular, things that people on the weekends just run down and do the whitewater on the Middle Rogue. And then below that is the Lower Rogue, which permit system only. Big whitewater, really cool stuff down there. No roads, and if you go down, you're down until you get out. There's no road. Well, I'm just going to go this far. No, you go the whole way or nothing. But as far as weird, not that much weird stuff happened because our trips were like all day trips.
Oh, okay.
And like I had friends that guided the Lower Rogue trips, and they had a lot of funny stories. Or they would take movie stars and famous people down there. One of my favorite ones, and I wasn't guiding, I was just on the trip, is there was a string quartet that was playing in Grants Pass, and they booked a 4-day Lower Rogue trip and brought their instruments, and so they the guide that the outfitter, his shop was right across from mine, and he said, "Hey, I'm gonna sell tickets for this. I haven't got it all booked. And they're gonna play like a concert, out in this wilderness part of the Rogue River." It was just awesome. And so they wore the long sleeve T-shirts that looked like a tuxedo. I mean, it was really cool.
Yeah.
And two guys, 2 girls, younger people, string quartet, just heavenly music. So that was cool.
That is cool. Yeah. How long did you do that for?
Like 3 years, I think.
Was that after you got out of the Air Force?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
so you grew up in SoCal, then you joined the Air Force, and then you went to college. Somewhere in there.
No. After the Air Force, I lived in basically Haight-Ashbury for a couple of years.
What?
Yeah.
Any stories from there?
Oh, a million of those.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
I might have to do another show about that then.
Yeah, and that was, where I, really started getting into music even more. Watching all the San Francisco bands, Grateful Dead, of course, the Jefferson Airplane, Quicksilver Messenger Service. I mean, Santana.
Yeah.
Um,
So many things that your generation got to do and be
Oh,
a
yeah.
part of in the beginning.
yeah,
I mean, we take it for granted now, but I mean,
Right.
like you were doing it before it was cool.
yeah. I kind of feel responsible for bringing music to the world.
Well, I've always told people that. I've always told people that. No, I know the guy. I know him personally.
He was there.
Oh boy! So you kind of migrated your way, and we'll come back to that. I will do another show, and we'll just talk all night about that.
I'm kind of busy.
Well, we got to get you out of the house. But what about you migrated up the coast, basically, and then
Well, I went back to Southern California. Yep. Trying to think of where I started at. And we're just getting tired of the, Southern California. I mean, just California in general. Kind of lived there, 20 years or whatever. And a friend of mine moved to Grants Pass. And he'd been, he was a drummer that I played with for a few years, and we took a lot of acid together. And he moved with another friend of ours to Grants Pass. And you got to come up here. So I lost a job down in California, and so I was going to collect unemployment. I said, well, let's go take a vacation. I'm married and had a couple kids at the time. Drove up to Grants Pass and basically didn't leave for years. I mean, I went back down and packed my shit and stuff, but
yeah,
and then so we're, when you grow up in Southern California and you go up to Southern Oregon, it's like, it's all woodsy and, and Four Seasons, which I wasn't used to. And I just, oh my God, this is just heaven,
And now looking back, you're like, snow. Ugh, snow and you got snow.
I wonder if I get my old house in Southern California back.
I'm sure you could, but it's going to cost you way a lot. So you did there, and then you eventually got into finance, and then that's how I found you. I needed a loan. I had bad credit. No, wait a minute. That was somebody else. So then you moved up to Eastern Oregon, and then
got transferred with the job.
Transferred.
And had planned on staying here a couple years because that was the way things went in our company. If you wanted to advance up, you had to keep moving offices and
right.
Be a company man and all that. And ended up, God, I don't remember how many years with the company after that, but probably 15 to 18 years working for the company in Pendleton.
Wow.
And total of 25 years with the company. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And now you're retired.
Yeah.
And keeping yourself busy, or is retirement everything that it's cracked up to be?
Well, after you've watched everything Netflix has to offer, it gets a little slow.
Right, yeah.
And
well,
COVID screwed things up, too. I mean, he's like, what do you want to do today? Well, sit in the house,
Exactly. I know. And even for, like, Bailey, she graduated that year and didn't have a graduation. Everything is, she hasn't even got to go off to see things or do anything yet because COVID's still wreaking havoc here and there. So, it's changed it for a lot. But during that time, up until, retirement, you've also been playing music this whole time, in different bands and whatnot. And I've been playing music with you in a band called Big Steve and the Trainwreck for a long time. I don't know exactly how many years, but I think
this is the 20th year.
Okay.
I mean, we're not really playing right now, but
No. But
I think 2002 is what the big
that's right.
Pendleton blanket says on it.
That's right.
I think.
And then the Pendleton Blues Club would have been in the late 90s. That's exactly, because it's the late 90s when I started doing that, and then shortly after there, you said I could come carry equipment with your band, and then
and bring us drinks
and stuff. So that's how I started. But, of course, the most important question of the interview, besides me, because I don't want to put you in an awkward position with other people, who would you say? I don't know if who would you say is the best guitar player you've ever played with, or your most favorite musician? I don't know.
That I've played with?
Yeah. I don't want to say favorite because I know you've played with a lot of good folks.
Well,
but
I'll tell you this, and this probably, it'll bring back a memory for you, and you go, yeah, you're right. Rob from the Blues Club. Remember Rob?
Yes, I do.
God, he was unbelievable.
He really was. And the funny thing about Rob is to think how, again, that happened with the Blues Club. Yeah. He saw the ad in the paper.
Yeah.
And came over, and we'd already been doing it for a while, just jamming at a local bar.
Right.
I up the airport, so it was kind of a cool place. And then this Rob guy shows up. He's working at Raytheon. I think it was destroying chemicals out there.
The safety officer.
Safety officer.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay,
making a ton of money.
He was from L.A. and let's see what this is all about. And then we were like blown away. Yes. And he had a resume too. I mean, you could say, oh well, BS. How does he prove that he played on stage with Stevie Ray Vaughan? Well, he couldn't.
Yeah.
But I watched him play.
Yeah.
And so humble and nice.
And supportive of other guitar players.
Yeah. I was brand new at the time, playing through a Sears, what did they call those? Sears, the guitar, I can't remember what it was, but it was an old Sears guitar, and he was so cool about everything. And he'd bring over his guitar that he might have paid a couple $1,000s for. Here, let's just play this. You want to play this? Just always so cool about everything. Very humble. For what he could do.
God, no kidding.
I mean, I'm glad that he destroyed the chemical weapons and he moved on, but sometimes I wish that would have lasted longer, so we could have played with him.
We could have, because he was so much fun.
He was. Yeah. What would you say all of your music career has been your favorite gig? Doesn't matter, big, small, favorite gig. For me, it's probably, instead of just one event, I would say it's just all the times we played at the little local wine and coffee shop, Great Pacific. I love it. Those are my favorite. It's family, it's home, it feels right to me.
Exactly.
But we've done some cool things, and so I'm curious, even before me, though, you might have done, I know you've had a bunch of other bands. What's the coolest gig you ever had?
Oh, boy.
It's a lot of gigs to go through.
Okay, when I played with Fat Boy, we played at the Roundup concert where we opened for Steve Miller.
That's right. That had to be awesome.
And some Leanne Rhymes and some other Brian White country guy.
Did you get to hang out with him at all?
Well, I did Leanne.
Oh, God. Okay, beep. Okay, all right. One more question regarding music. Of all the songs, and I should say, and this could be a whole nother episode we could do just talking about your writings that you've done. You've written a lot of songs. I mean, a lot of songs. And you can write them like easy. I can come to you with an idea. I'm like, hey, Steve, I really like this line from a movie. Can you write a song? Boom, song around it. What's your favorite song that you've ever written? And if it's not one you've written, then played in your band, in your music.
Well, the one I think I'd have to go to is Sigh for Me, I think. I just,
That's funny. I agree.
Yeah.
It is, I've always said, I mean, we're just a local.
And the recording came out good and all that,
Everything was perfect.
And that, on that first album, God, I can't even think of the name of the song. Maybe it's your intro thing, but call my friend old Johnny. The acoustic, one of the acoustic ones on the first album.
Yeah.
Back Porch Blues.
Back Porch Blues.
Or Front Porch Blues.
Either one.
Whichever.
It was a Porch Blues.
That was a really cool. So we never did that live. It was just on the album. But
yeah, that was great. All right. Well, we've come to the point where I got to stop the interview and ask you the most important thing of the night, and I need you to spit some wisdom. This is the spitting wisdom section of the show. My grandfather used to say that. If you could go back in time for 3 minutes and talk to one person, anyone you want, one person, 3 minutes, and give some advice, spit some wisdom, who would it be, and what would you say?
Who would it be?
It's a tough one, huh?
Yeah, actually, I don't know if it would be a specific person. But
okay, yeah, just
young, teenage boys or adolescent, whatever that age. If you can't keep it in your pants, wear a condom.
I like it.
If you're gonna do it, with no precautions, make sure it's somebody you want to be dealing with for the next 18 years of your life.
At least, yeah.
Well, yeah, at least. I mean, if you're, having to support a child or whatever, you're gonna have to see the mother too. But yeah, I think it's the only thing I think of.
Well, that's pretty good. I'm sure there are people out there that should take that to heart. We know several of them. But
oh yeah.
Well, Steve, thank you very much for being on my podcast. It's a brand new thing I'm doing, and I don't know what I'm doing. Of course, you know that. That's how I've always done everything. Just jump right in. So I'm hoping that you'll come back and join us again.
Great.
All right, Steve.
Will there be money involved the next time?
Never.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Sonoma Sideshow.
All right. I want to thank tonight's guest, Big Steve Humphrey. Guy's a legend. I want to thank our listeners. Thank our sponsors, Bill Murphy Roofing, Wandering Wizard Concepts, Vertical Jigs and Lures, DLC Photography, The Shop, DieselFuelFilters.com, and the John P. Salter Foundation. All sponsors can be found on most major social media outlets. Intro music provided by Pecan Pie and distributed by Upbeat. News articles provided by Reuters and Associated Press. And the internet. That's a wrap. Be sure to catch the next episode. Until then, keep your nose clean if it takes both sleeves. And say nice things about me, 'cause I'm gone.